Welcome to Dream, Declare, Deliver with Chris Carell and Candace Ogren. Join us each week as we explore how to live a life by design and turn inspiration into realization.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Dream, Declare, Deliver. My name's Chris Carell, and along with Candace Ogren, I have written a book called Typhoon Honey, The Only Way Out is Through. And Dream, Declare, Deliver is a podcast about living a life by design. I have the great fortune today of having a good friend of mine, Sarah Bernson, with me to discuss a topic. Sarah is a licensed marriage and family counselor, works with children and families, and just a trainer, a coach, just all the kinds of things that I like to be and do too, and just one of my dear friends. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining us and me. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about defenses and defensiveness and defenselessness, kind of that whole package of goodies that sometimes gets in the way of our Dream, Declare, Deliver, and is there for a reason, I guess, so I think maybe I'd like to start by saying, how do we differentiate between a defense and maybe a boundary? I kind of have different views of those, but they're both there to sort of protect, aren't they?
Yes, that's what comes up, is they're both protection, defenses and boundaries. I feel like boundaries maybe are something we set up in advance.
Yeah, I get that. That's a great idea.
And maybe defenses are something that pop up in the moment.
Yeah. I kind of go along with that. I think, my boundaries are things that I've established that say, this is who I am and I'm unwilling to compromise on, so you can get me. I'm pretty mutable. I kind of roll with the punches pretty easily, but there are certain things that I'm just not going to compromise, or I'm not going to sell out on, because they're my standards, my standards for excellence for me. And I call that a boundary,
Yeah.
Whereas my defensiveness, I think I align with what you were saying, is, my defenses are things that, kind of pop up in the moment and are coming from somewhere else, some need to protect something, I think.
Yeah, and as you say that, and as you were speaking, Chris, what came up for me is that a boundary is kind of a safety limit that you set for yourself. It's like a zone, like this is where after this point, I don't function at my highest, or whatever it may be. And defenses kind of are not necessarily from a safe space.
Yeah, right.
They protect us. But they come from triggers. Yeah. Right.
Well, they come from the ego, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, in classical psychology, we even call them ego defenses. They're not just defenses; they're ego defenses. And so, that name kind of connotes to me that it's something that the ego wants to, protect in its little self-righteous, belief about itself. I gotta look good, right. So how do we discover? I mean, I've worked a lot with this in my life, and trying to uncover, discover, and flesh out my defenses to see what's legit and what's not. How do I just do it through reflection and things, but what advice might we give people to get started on that whole thing? Because I think the first step in dealing with our defenses is knowing that we have them, right?
Well, for me, it means like being aware of when you are defensive. So like when you feel defensive, and then what happened, and then why? Like how come it's like, becoming aware.
Yeah.
At the trigger point.
Well, and before the trigger point is really, when you said, experiencing that, when you first feel defensive, the feeling that I get is kind of a stiffening,
Mm-hmm.
when I feel myself reacting in that kind of stiffening or bristling kind of way, I'm pretty certain that's coming from a defense position. And so that's where that's my flag to start saying, whoa, stop. What's going on here? What am I defended against? And I think there's all kinds of different reasons why the defense would pop up. And there are tons of different ways that we act on our defenses, right?
Yes. Something that came up for me when you said that, Chris, is that for me, when somebody hits something about me that I haven't yet discovered myself, accurate, but not necessarily pleasant, is when my defense is really ooh, I hadn't seen that yet. Oh, you just saw something about me I didn't know. Ouch.
Ooh. Brilliant. What happens there? What do you do?
I think it's twofold. I feel very exposed and vulnerable in that moment because, and then my internal judgment of that comes out. What I judge that to mean is how I respond to it. May not be what somebody else is saying, but how I respond.
Well, and what I judge it to mean about me, it's like you saw something in me that I didn't see, and all of a sudden I feel exposed. Excuse me. All of a sudden I feel exposed, and there's a part of me that just doesn't want to go there because I haven't investigated that, and this is a public conversation, right? So I can feel myself stiffening already to that,
Yes.
But I think those kinds of defensive reactions maybe are like the healthy ones that we, that are there, to, I guess, soften the blow or maybe protect us, until we do the work and find that out. So that's one kind of defensiveness that pops up is, just the recoil of like, what are you saying? And it stings too much to be untrue, the more it stings or the more it smarts, the more I'm recognizing that's something that's probably true and I haven't looked at. Because it's like, it's like an arrow to the chest. It's like, pull that one out. Ow. Right.
Yes.
I once had the great pleasure of talking with a Native American medicine man or a shaman by the name of Medicine Sun Bear. And he said about that, he said, there are some times when the medicine man does not take the arrow out. He said, because, that pulling it out would cause more damage, more bleeding, and you have to let the body heal around it and expel that arrow or whatever it is, the wound. And it takes more time. I thought that was brilliant. And this kind of just triggered in my head when you said that, is like, there's something that I get to heal first before I can pull that arrow out.
Wow, that's so important what you just said, Chris, about the healing, because so many times our responses to things, especially our defensive responses, are signs of trauma. It's not our natural behavior or our natural response. And it's awareness, hey, there's something there I get to heal.
You're right. Right.
Of like, ooh, there's something there.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go to the other side, though, to the rationalization, the denial. There are defenses that we have, defense mechanisms, I guess I would call them, that we use when the ego wants to protect its sacred little self, and I call it the little self. It's not like the true self. Because the self that the ego makes up is a little idol, a little, image, and not really reflective of the true soul and the true being of who you are. So those other kinds of defense mechanisms that show up really are, places where we get to go, I guess.
Or places we go before we accept, right? And the places we travel on the journey before we find what.
Yeah. Say more about that. Do you have an experience with that?
Well, I in my, studies, in my work, in my own personal experience, what I find is like what we initially denied, we're not necessarily ready to receive yet. Mm-hmm. And it takes some time to unpack it. And then like, there's usually an epiphany that hits and it's like, oh yeah, that's what happened.
Is that what you mean by the why? The why of the defense?
Yeah. Cause sometimes like you have to get to the root of it to heal it. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just put stuff on top of it. Because then it's going to keep popping up every once in a while when you hit that spot. Right.
Yeah. I'm sure I do that a lot is, like try to mask it over and put things on top of it to make it look good. Because I really haven't done the work. I haven't, whether it's healing or, I have a puffed up illogical belief about myself or whatever it is that's, I can give you an example. I have been doing men's work for years and years and years, and I've always been on a men's team. And my men know me intimately. They know my skeletons and everything. And one day, one of the guys, this is quite some time ago, but one of the guys said to me, why are you always achieving? Why do you always have to have so many, results? You did this, you did that, you ran for America, and you did, blah, 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 blah. Like you're always more invested in what you did and what your accomplishments are. When are you going to stop? And I didn't realize until that point that my doing this was also a defense to cover up, a deep-seated, I'm not enough. Somewhere in all of us, we have that little voice inside of us say that, you're not really enough. You're not smart enough, bright enough, fast enough, big enough, experienced enough, whatever. You're not enough for whatever the challenge is. And so, so there's that defense mechanism that I had that was, oh yeah, watch this. And I would, add another bullet point to my resume, as it were, but it was getting at the why, that my friend was saying that, why do you have to do that? You're enough. We accept you.
So when your friend got to that with you, did that shift your need to be such a doer and to accomplish all those things, or did something settle in you with that understanding?
It was both. It was a settling in, but there was a shift that started a process of letting go of accomplishment, letting go of, more importantly, letting go of reminding people of my accomplishments. It's like, I don't have to remind anybody of my accomplishments. That's not necessary. That's really a cover-up mechanism for the vulnerability of not feeling like I'm enough. So if I do work on those two things, if I work on I am enough, that takes part of that why away. But if I work on not attaching myself to my results, yeah, right. It's the attachment that I had that was really making it feel like defensiveness to him. We used to call him Yoda because he was just so wise and always just had those zingers.
Yeah, well, the zingers are great because they help you explore without caution, without like that protective zone, really look. Yeah. We don't want to see.
Right. Well, and it helps a lot when somebody exposes a defense mechanism of yours, and that somebody is a person that you're intimate with or that you're, deeply bonded to. Go ahead. You're going to say something.
Yeah, well, anytime you choose to do the work and do
Mm-hmm.
the exploring on your own, you're going to have a different result than when somebody puts it in your face,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because you are looking and you're open,
Mm-hmm.
and that presents a different possibility.
Well, and even the way that's presented in a intimate relationship, or a connection, with a person that that I call them intimate relationships. That when the guys know me better than I know myself, when they know the back of my head because I can't see it, I consider that a level of intimacy, and they have permission
Yes.
already because of the nature of our relationship. They have permission to, just as Sarah does, my wife, has permission to say, yo, baby, what's up with that, and call it to my attention, or just hold the mirror up to me.
Yes. I would say that those are the priceless connections that we have in our life, the people do that with or allow that experience to flow in our lives. I recently was on vacation with a friend that I've known for 27 years.
Wow.
And I stayed with her for a few days, and I was sharing with her some personal stuff about a relationship. And she said, "That's you doing that again. You're protecting yourself and not taking risks." And she said something, and immediately I felt my whole
Yep.
And I was like, ah! And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great that you know me so well.
Right.
It's like a shift in the second, like I felt it, but then I was like, oh, it's so refreshing that you know me and that you can say that to me, because so many people say, I don't know. I don't know if that's...
I missed a little bit of what you said in the last sentence, Can you say that again? So many people what?
I'm not sure. That opportunity, I don't know, but like,
yeah. I think what I saw in your lips was, so many people don't do that. That's what
I said in regards to her telling me, giving me, so many people don't give you the honest feedback of what they happened.
Yeah. And that initial reaction is what I was talking about in feeling myself stiffen, that would be my initial reaction when Bill or one of the guys or Sarah, calls me, or Candace, one time we were working on Typhoon Honey, and Candace was sharing something because her real function in the book was to bring anecdotes and stories, of people we've worked with. And she was sharing something, and then I responded to her. I thought I was responding to her, and she said, "You didn't even hear what I said, did you? You were waiting for your turn to talk, and not." She said, I felt you disengage about halfway through what I was saying. And, I don't want to admit that. I'm a good listener. I'm a counselor, a psychologist. That doesn't fit with my self-concept. First reaction, no. Oh yeah. This was Candace, saying it to me, and she not only has the permission, but she has the insight of knowing me that well to say, I could feel the shift in you when you started thinking of something halfway through what I was saying, and you disengaged energetically. And I go like, wow, I do that, don't I? So that second, the first blush stiffening, and the second reaction of thank you. Thank you so much for having the courage and the relationship enough to call me on my defenses. That is a defense mechanism. Also, rationalizing, intellectualizing and stuff like that, because what we were talking about was something very intimate.
Yeah. Yes. As you started going through the stages, you just started talking about different types of defenses. I kind of thought about when somebody tells you something about yourself and you're like, you throw it back at them. I don't do that. You do that.
Yeah, right, right. Don't project onto me.
Don't project on. No.
Right. That's your shit, not mine. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, there are all different kinds of defense mechanisms that we talked about in Typhoon Honey. Things like rationalizing, sublimating, which is a way of like putting your energy into something else so that you don't have to deal with the thing that's really causing you discomfort. Denial, of course, is one of the big ones. Like, that's not me. No, you got the wrong person. Right?
That's most
or
common.
you're projecting onto me. That's the denial mechanism. Like, the ego just doesn't want to admit that about me. Not the ego. My ego doesn't want to admit that about me.
If you see it, you got it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a great point, because if you see it in other people, what you find seeing, yourself seeing and being sensitive to in other people's defense mechanisms or defensiveness is usually the thing that you know best for yourself, the thing that you do. Let me speak personally. It's the thing that I do. When I see it in somebody else, the first thing I have to say to myself is, how am I doing that? Because if I'm able to recognize it, it's something that's known to me, and therefore I must also be party to that.
Now that's powerful awareness. And that's the step that most people don't get to, Chris. They just, in the work, that's not, like, they're not looking to find that. That's powerful.
Well, and yeah, it is, because everything that we do, feel, see, experience comes first through the filter, up here, and if that filter is my own, it includes my own defenses, it's going to be able to recognize that. So I have to take all feedback and all situations and first strip out what is me in there, and what's the other. And that's the hard part, I think, in dealing with defenses, is really like, oh, that's mine too. That, that's kind of the uncomfortable place of recognition.
Yeah, I've been using that more as a tool for myself lately in situations when in relationship with other people. Mm-hmm. Something makes me uncomfortable about another person. I try to figure out how I'm doing that.
Yeah. Why is it uncomfortable? Yeah.
Or causing it, or it is me, but it always comes back to me.
Well, it does, and then that's not egotistical or egocentric to port it back to you. It's really doing the hard work of self-introspection, and working with defenses is that introspective thing. Now, one of the things we talked about before we haven't gotten to was, if we take away a defense mechanism, and know what the why is behind it, what do we get to replace it with?
Yeah, that's really,
because it's there for a purpose, There's like an important role that the defense plays. And what's your experience with that?
Well, you that's where the healing comes in, right? So like, you find what that defense is caused by. Like, when you remove that, you have to replace it with some other thing that you're telling yourself, whatever the lack of that you were telling yourself. You now get to replace it with, you are, like, you are enough. You are.
So like an affirmation might work there.
All the things, whatever specifically hits you or fits for you, because they're going to be different. But what you were talking about earlier about not being enough and having all those accolades to put to your name so that you could be enough, it would be just telling yourself, I'm enough. Yeah. I am enough. And just like all the things that, make you so amazing, without all the accolades.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason for the why, like, if you understand, like, wow, when I was younger, X, Y, and Z happened, like, then you can kind of fill in the blanks as to why you feel something that really isn't true to who you are now.
Yeah.
You can kind of go of that past and,
and in that situation, I traced it back to believe it or not, a high school guidance counselor who told me point blank, you will never amount to anything.
Oh, a guidance counselor.
A guidance counselor in high school said, you will never amount to, you're lazy and you will never amount to anything. And that has been a driver in my life, for accomplishment after accomplishment. And, and I just want to go back to something you said, that when I do something or my defense is around the I'm not enough, saying I am enough is not about my accomplishments. It's not I am enough because of all of the great things I've done. It's I am enough, period. Like there's a sense of self-worth that I have just because I'm alive and just because I'm here and just because I'm in relationship with you. That is enough.
Yes.
To be alive and aware is enough, and I don't have to do anything to prove that. I don't have to, accolades to my name. I don't have to have a resume to show that. It's just a belief in myself that I'm enough. What an exhale that is.
Yeah. It's a way of being.
Yeah. Other things other than affirmations, what else can we do to fill that hole or that structure of a defense that, was there to protect something while we healed it, so.
Well, it's the affirmations are important, but it's also reminding yourself, that you're doing the work and that you're healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just telling yourself the affirmations of I'm enough. It's acknowledging your work. It's acknowledging the process.
Great point. Yeah. So when we talk about dream, declare, deliver, what we're really talking about is a process that is ongoing, recycling all the time, redeclaring and delivering on the declaration so that we, then we're saying to ourselves, yeah, I am enough. I'm able to do this, and it's not about the result. It's just really about, I can take the next step forward. I'm okay. Safe here.
Yeah, and you just triggered a word for me in saying all of that, Chris. What came to me was trust. Trusting yourself, really having that space to know when something feels like it's yours, trusting when something doesn't feel right.
Yeah, that's great. And I think trusting myself allows me to trust others.
Oh, it's so true.
And the distrust of others is often a reflection of the distrust of myself, kind of works backwards too. And that's another big source of defenses that I don't trust myself to do things, how could I trust anybody else to do that? So I get all these defended, walls around myself to protect that lack of trust. And it comes from my lack of trust in myself. Wow. That's brilliant. Great stuff. So thank you so much for joining me today and in this conversation. There's so much more we could unpack from this, but it's just really, it's a great thing to, to noodle around and stuff and add to the conversations of, how do we actually live into a life by design, and allow ourselves the grace of being able to do that. So thank you, Sarah Bernson. I look forward to seeing you soon and join us next time on Dream, Declare, Deliver, where we'll talk about another fun topic. Thanks.